Afternoon. I've probably won the prize for the most boring slide of the day. I put some real effort into that one, didn't I? I've really enjoyed this morning so far. It's been really, really good, and I'm really hoping this afternoon is going to be the same. And a couple of things. I really enjoy this job as well, not just the North West and Central job. I just love being involved in what we do as a community here. And to a point where I was out with one of your people who was just presented his chartership today, Andy Mulholland, on Tuesday night this week, up at a place at Whitehaven, and Mona was talking about problem solving earlier. That is a real problem, but I love it. I love it, and that's why we're here. We're the professionals, and we're going to sort that problem out. And we have loads of those to do. We have one of those nearly every weekend. We have a problem to solve, whether it's a really difficult problem or a really easy or relatively easy problem. It's kind of irrelevant, but we're solving problems all the time, and that's the most enjoyable part of the job. And at Whitehaven, I'm going to go on about like nobody's business, trust me. And then just I'm going to trump. Is Mona in the room? Oh, I was going to trump Mona because I was going to talk about supercalc. Does anybody remember supercalc? Yeah, there's a few of us. So it predated Excel, and I was telling Simon Harvey earlier that about 35 years ago, I was handed a pencil and a rubber to start doing halard designs. And I thought, well, yeah, I can do that now. And I learned how to do it with a pencil and rubber. I thought, yeah, but somebody's just given me this supercalc thing. And I designed my own little, I designed loads of formulas in this spreadsheet when computers were only just a new thing. And it just, overnight, my halard designer used to take me bloody weeks to do. Overnight, would take me minutes or hours to do. It was amazing. So I only referenced that because Mona was referencing Excel earlier on. So yeah, the problem solving stuff is what I love, and you need to help me solve a problem. And yeah, that's kind of the types of jobs we do. And then what I also then get, and the hairs on my back went up earlier when somebody was talking. And I've written that. Now remember, I'm just a deliverer. I deliver track renewals, right? And that's what I've done for most of my career. And I'm reassuringly expensive because people keep telling me that I'm expensive. And somebody said earlier on, actually, God, track renewals is expensive. Now, I have a slightly different view, which is slightly less emotive, that actually we just can't afford track renewals anymore because the unit rates we think we can deliver it for, we just can't afford it. Because trust me, you'll upset every single person who delivers track renewals when you keep telling them they're expensive, especially me. So yeah, and are we a community? I'd like to think, and I've talked to quite a few people today, yeah, we are a community, of course we do. We all love each other because we're all track people and we're all great. But we make decisions without always thinking about the other person or the other team. And that's not just the track renewals people. We as an industry make decisions without realising, you squeeze the balloon there, the problem's going to come up there somewhere else. So I put that up to provoke some thoughts because it is a perception. The track is expensive. It's just we can't afford it. And are we a community? I think there's a little bit of reality stroke perception in there as well because a community would really work together when we don't always do that. Because that's what a kind of community of practice kind of should be doing. And the conversation this morning has been brilliant because you've all kind of been talking about wanting to do it, but wanting to do it and doing it are two slightly different things. So I'm loving the fact that I could almost turn my presentation off now. You've all said you're going to do it. Let's start doing it then. And I could walk off stage now, but I'm not going to because I would have wasted my time doing my slides. And that's even more boring, that slide, isn't it? But anyway, so why do we need a community of practice for track or track renewals? Because we're good, aren't we? Yeah? But trust me, we could be so much better. Whether you're talking about engineering, design, safety, delivery, whatever, it doesn't really matter. We know we can be better. And I got some negative feedback from, and I'm going to just touch on safety for a sec. I got some negative feedback from my current supply chain partner, Balfour Beatty's, when I said, kind of, we're 5 out of 10. The Central Alliance is 5 out of 10 for safety. Now, I did it a little bit to provoke some conversation. But then when you talk about world-class safety is 10 out of 10. You can't get better than 10 out of 10. We're not 10 out of 10 when we've got people who are wearing PPE that's not good enough. Now, I don't mean Balfour's direct employees, I don't mean Network Rail direct employees or Atkins direct employees, I mean the supply chain. So if we're accepting mediocrity, then that's not 10 out of 10. It's not even 8 out of 10. I could question whether it's 5 out of 10. But we're very good, but I know if we get together as a community, we could be even better. Right, I used this slide, well, a version of this slide before, because what really winds me up, and you know what I'm going to put up, is when we make comparisons between one track renewals team and another. Great to make the comparison, but please make sure it's an apples with apples comparison, because it's another thing you can do to just wind the people up that you're comparing without the data being factual. Even if it's a little bit like that, you kind of think, all right, that's okay, it's kind of the same. It tastes the same. I don't like the green ones, but anyway, it kind of tastes the same. But then when you start doing that, and your flavours are changing, and your product is changing, you're definitely not. And especially when you start doing that. And the last time I didn't do this bit, but I'm at a PWI conference, so I kind of put that chair up instead. So when you're comparing apples and chairs, you're only going to wind the people up by saying that one is better than the other. And I've got an example I can use from another part of the country, which was used on me when I was managing track renewals nationally, where they said, God, those guys in Southern, they smash it out of the park. But those guys in Wessex, God, they're awful. I had to respond on the call to say, you do realise they're the same guys. Because you don't understand why it costs more in Wessex than it does in Southern. And I had to help try and obviously explain that. So you will wind me up even more if you show me one of these slides. Because it goes back to the point about that is just to compare one route to another, one region to another, for categories of work where there are reasons why you're not comparing apples and apples. So, for example, we do cost and volume reporting differently in each of the regions. And a simple example is some of the routes and regions are claiming volume for stressing overlaps, which is legitimate, which gets added onto their volume at the end of the year, which means you divide the cost by the volume, which includes stressing overlaps, which means your unit rate is lower. But not all the regions are doing that. So you're not doing an apples with apples comparison. There's lots of stuff and lots of reasons why just looking at a chart without any context is the wrong thing to do, because it upsets people as well. And that conversation about Southern versus Wessex was just a classic because it was the same people. And then what that also doesn't include is one of the biggest factors, or two of the biggest factors actually, as to why you're not really talking about the cost of doing a track renewal. Because that, what you can see on the screen there, is construction cost only. So you're only talking about what it costs from a design and delivery perspective to deliver that job. Because what it doesn't include, it doesn't tell you on that chart, I wonder how many of these sites are handing back at line speed, so there's no Schedule 8 impact. And what it also doesn't include is Schedule 4. Now, I came from a world, and I know other people will think this, West Coast South track renewals where we're not forced, that's the wrong word, but where we're asked to deliver track renewals in 12-ish hour possessions. So if you do that, you're going to do like a 100-metre sprint, and you're going to do that, and you're going to hand it back. When you look at this, you'd say, gosh, that's expensive. But actually, when you say, well, there's Schedule 4 for that job costs nothing, and then you weigh the two things up, that might be the most efficient way to do a track renewal. Now, I'm a track engineer myself, so I would never want to do that on every job, because doing 100-metre track renewals would give you all sorts of problems. But it might be the most efficient way to do it, but they're not included. So what I'm trying to, now a few of us, including John and Eric, had to present this to the ELT recently. This was part of a wider paper about what are we going to do about the inaffordability of track renewals, basically, is the kind of title in my head. Now, what this does, and I've been thinking about this for years, but I've never really thought about it in terms of looking like that. And it was only because I was looking at a risk maturity model, I thought, oh, actually, we could do that for cost. So I'll use some examples to kind of make the point about why this is really, really important for us as a community to use. So if you think about undersleeper pads, I'm, as lots of you know in the room, I would love to put undersleeper pads on everything because it's the right thing to do from a whole life cost perspective. It's just the right thing to do in an engineering perspective, right thing to do. But if I put undersleeper pads on everything, my unit rate gets worse, so my unit rate will go towards the centre of that chart because they cost more. Yet my pounds in the ground measure, because it cost me more to construct, my pounds in the ground measure would get better because it cost me more. And then likewise, I talked about speeds. If I'm going to hand back at a higher speed, my Schedule 8 score on this chart would go towards the outside. If I'm going to hand back at 50 miles an hour, then that would go into the inside of the chart. And likewise with Schedule 4, if I could only choose 3 measures off that chart to just compare on one chart that people go, right, that looks like the right decision, it would be the unit rate, the Schedule 4 and the Schedule 8. Sorry, the unit rate, Schedule 4, Schedule 8, yeah. Because those 3 things are the 3 things that really, really cost the money. Right, so I'm hoping to get there with that, but Group Finance are on board, ELT are on board. I need some help from lots of people, and if anybody in here has got any ideas, or anybody online's got any ideas as to how we can make this work, please reach out to me, because this is something we want to try and start using by year 2, because it's really, really important to me and lots of other people. So the thing that wound me up earlier on was when somebody said something's expensive, and trap renewals is expensive. This is a live job that gets delivered in about a year's time. It is NR60 Mark II. It is HPSS Mark II. It is 16 units, G switches. So as you can imagine, it's not on the most, it's not on the cheap side of a trap renewal, which some people might require. The route that this is on has got about £20 million to spend on it, and the current estimate is around £26.5 million. And I walked away from a meeting last week thinking it was my fault that we couldn't spend £20 million there. Yet if you look at the reason I put the cost stack in, and you look at some of those big numbers, some of those numbers are totally out of my control. You know, if I talk about the £19 million they've got available, £10 million of that is just the material costs of the S&C. Another £3 and a bit million is the trains, the tampers, the ballast, the spoil management, and all that kind of stuff. So when you break it down into a cost stack, you see, well, actually, there is no way Brian could deliver that job for £19 million unless we decide to actually change the scope on it. Now, we tried that, and we went through an exercise of de-scoping, and it wasn't the right thing to do. This is at Hanslope. Hanslope, in the last 5 or 6 years, has cost around £20 million in delays. So it makes sense. We do the right thing, go there, do it, get it done, walk away. But I can't do it for £19 million. I just can't. And that doesn't include Schedule 8, and it doesn't include Schedule 4. Now, there is some analysis done that says the access we've got was the right access for it. Brilliant, because I've been given 1 stage for this. That is like utopia for me. An S&C job, 16 units, 1 stage. Brilliant. It's being done at Christmas. Not so good. But all this analysis still doesn't include the Schedule 4 and Schedule 8 in the balance, where you look at it and go, that's the right industry decision. Right, so who needs to be in the community of practice? So, hands up if you're from any of the 3 alliances or the delivery team in Southern. So there's a few here. Any from the contractor partner? So there's a few. Oh, right, there's a few. So that's actually quite positive, because I thought there wouldn't be any, but there's some. But there needs to be more at this type of event. So please, next time this is run, I guess it's going to be next December, please make sure we get more representatives from the contractor and the designer to come to this. Really important that they're listening to all of the stuff that everybody's talking about. One of the things I would like from this community of practice when we develop it is they're all talking to each other as well. They don't have to just talk to each other through Network Rail. That we've got Volkers in Southern talking to Babcock in Scotland, Balfour's talking to Babcock, Colas talking to Balfour's, all of them talking to each other, because that would be really, really powerful. And what I'm hoping to do with the pain gain share mechanism in year 2 of the contract is actually make that part of the pain gain, that they are collaborating, and somehow I've got to work out how to measure that. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to measure how they collaborate for them to justify receiving their gain by not spending the risk that we have in the contract or the contingency. Absolutely need SEO in there, and there's been some really good SEO conversations today. We need to make decisions together. You know, there's a decision that was made only last week or the week before, which I found out about switching off a certain piece of kit. I've invested in the MFS Pluses down in Wales and Western for use everywhere, but I invested in them because I needed them, and just using those the MFS Pluses on a couple of jobs paid for themselves for about 3 years. So I've got them available for everybody, and now all of a sudden we're switching off the MFSs, which I need to use with them. That decision is massive for me. So if we can in any way reverse out of that decision, that would be fantastic. I'm going to have to speed up now because I've got 5 minutes left. Group finance are already helping me with the community, with the cost maturity model. That's brilliant because they have to be in it with us, because I want them to change those graphs that they were showing as well. But I do need them in it with us. TA, John and Eric, brilliant. You've been massively supportive so far. We've got some work to do between us. John talked about standard challenges earlier. You know, that derogation that I've got, I just want to make that a standard change now so that everybody does it. And if you think about track being a community of practice, until I came to North West and Central, they didn't know that I had a derogation in place to do 60-mile-an-hour temporary clamps in Wales and Western. Now I'm here, we're doing it here, but now I want Craig Barkley to take it to Scotland, that if you're doing a track renewal and you've got temporary clamps, you can do it at 60 mile an hour now if you follow the derogation we've got in place. So TA absolutely need you in this community of practice, and likewise the Centre of Excellence. There is so much they can do to help us with how we run that thing when we do it, because, you know, like me, many of the people in the room are just deliverers, and I wouldn't have a clue how to do it and how to run it. I'm great at starting something, but I'm a rubbish completer finisher. But I bring up the ideas, and then I got Nick and Amit to kind of follow it through and finish it for me. But supply chain, the supply chain is massive. They absolutely need to be in this with us, because they need to help us invest in the future. And somebody mentioned strategic plant earlier. That's a massive problem for us, and I'll come to that in a sec. The routes and regions, and I'll come on to why they need to be involved, but I am actually in the route. I'm not in one of the alliances. I am in the route and region, but I need to engage all the engineering community in the region and routes to be involved in this community of practice with us. 2 minutes left. And then anybody's welcome. So I'm going to quickly go through this slide. This is just basically to say we've got to do this properly. You know, I didn't invent that model. This is the Tuckman model of forming, storming, norming, and etc. We need to do it properly. And how long have we got? I reckon we've got about 2 years to prove ourselves, because in 2 years' time, we're going to start writing the contracts for track renewals in CP8. So we've got 2 years. I think the outcome will be we'll write a paper that says, this is what we would recommend, that how you procure the track renewals in CP8. This is the strategic plant you need. This is the geographical split if you still go with alliances. I would recommend alliances, I think, already, but the regions will still have a choice to do their own thing because we're devolved. So we've got about 2 years, and we'll do it as part of our day job. And then there's all these things there already. We are not consistent in the way we do lots and lots of these things. And I just wanted to end on this slide. Does anyone know where that is? You're bound to know, because I talk about this place all the time. So Severn Tunnel, this is a great example of how we did come together as a kind of smaller community, but we came together as a community. This place needs renewing more often than anywhere in the country. We're in there every 5 years doing rail changing, every about 12 years doing track renewals. We've just recently done the whole of the upline and the whole of the downline over 3 years. And when I say how do we do it, right, so in the past when Marcus and I were techs, we'd be doing this in 30 or 50-hour possessions. We did the upline in 2 years in a row in 10-day possessions where we did 2 miles in each. And then people were still telling me I was expensive. So I got on my hobby horse, as I like doing, and I said, right, if you keep telling me I'm expensive, I'm going to keep telling you in the routes that I want all my jobs to be done in one stage. And then I got my own way. So we did a 4.25 mile renewal in one go. Went from what would have been 15 days in the past, or could have done in 2 10-day blocks, we did it in 16 days. But that wasn't just me making the decision, that was me, Andrew Bartlett and Craig in the track RAM team in Wales, GWR, the contractor part of the alliance, you know, because I had this, I think we can do it in 16 days. Somebody had to prove that to me. We got it done in 16 days. I can't remember anyone ever doing a track renewal, particularly in there, in 16 days of 4.25 miles long without high output kit, must say, Pete. Without high output, has anyone ever done a 4.25 mile track renewal in one go? I don't know. I've told lots of people they haven't, but some of the other people might prove me wrong. But it goes to show what can be done when we really, really put our minds to it. Because GWI did not want us to block for 15 weekends. Because weekends are their prime now. They said, please do it in 16 days. And we did it. And we smashed it out of the park. But it means now I can't go in there for another 12 years now because it's a shame. But I can concentrate now on Whitehaven. So I've fallen out of love with Severn Tunnel. I'm now in love with Whitehaven. So that's my last bit. I have run out of time now. So this bit was just said to kind of summarise that we've just got to do our best now. We've got to collaborate, all of us. I need your help with the community of practice. I'm going to lead it for the first year and then see what happens next. Because we're not expensive. We just can't afford us, which is a shame because I'd love to be doing, and I was talking to Craig at lunchtime, and it's a shame what's going on in Scotland at the minute, but I'd love to be doing full scope renewals like Hanslope on every single job because then what we're doing is leaving a legacy behind us, but we just can't afford to. So thank you.